Hi everybody, my name is Nicolò and today I'm going to talk about accessible annotations for a native map viewer for the web platform. I'm going to show you user needs and requirements. I'm from the W3C APA, I'm an invited expert, and first of all I'd like to thank Joshua Connor from the W3C that has helped me a lot with this presentation, and all the other members of the RQTF from the APA W3C. So today we're going to talk about accessibility and maps. As you know, maps are used every day to find routes, to navigate, provide other information, and all other very important user needs. Maps can be either complex or simple objects, and according to the user needs, they are configurable, so user most of the time switch between different layers in order to see different data for the same geographic area. So, as you can imagine, in general, maps are a complex object, and from an accessibility perspective, they represent a challenge, but we have to start from one aspect, and maybe the most important is the need for annotations. We talk about annotations of geolocated data and maps metadata. Why are they so important for accessibility? Because once those annotations are specified and then delivered, they become available to be read from machines or from humans for different outputs, such as non-visual outputs like speech synthesis or like symbols. And this is very important because text annotations is the most portable format and the only one that can be translated into other formats. So we start from the text annotations and then we can deliver data and the information for different user needs. We have grouped all these use cases and requirements into four main fields regarding use cases for the maps: information retrieval, navigation, comparing, and monitoring. And we are going to start from the first one. But first of all, we like to state that the following user needs are neither exhaustive nor definitive. They represent a starting point to begin to orientate towards user needs and potential requirements. So it's a kind of a way to start to think about accessibility for a map object for the web. So, user needs for information retrieval. We are going to start from the first user needs and the first two requirements. Okay, so the first user need, a student wants to learn the boundaries of a certain geographical area. We have two requirements to solve this. Different regions must be labeled with text and other metadata, and each place of interest, for example, like cities, should be available with labels that should contain not only the place of interest, but also the region where it belongs. In this user need and all other presented in this presentation, metadata may be area or other HTML attributes. So this is to give some kind of nomenclature for metadata. The second user need, a researcher wants to analyze a geographical area using different zoom levers and measurements. So users should be able to configure their experience on reading the map. This is very important because different users might need different scale, unit, and other metadata in order to read and to understand the data that are on the map. And so scale, unit, and other metadata should be available as labels on the map context. Of course, they also must be editable using available controls on the map. User need 1.3. A user wants to study only the rivers and the lakes of an area without being distracted by other data. This is very important because As we said before, data are very complex objects, and so most of the times user just want to read only certain data rather than all the data that are available on the maps. And so, as a requirement for this user need, mass different data must be available as layers that can be switched on and off by the users according to their user need. And the active layers must be available as text labels, so they can be found easily by users while looking into the map. Now we are going to talk about user needs for navigation. We start with this user need. A user with low vision wants to highlight the route between two places. We have one requirement that might need to be solved in order to solve this particular user need. The distance between places must be available as a text label. This is very important because when a user wants to navigate towards a specific destination, one of the most important information that he or her needs is the distance. And so if the user is using a real-time navigation mode, that is very common. So think about we are a user that wants to navigate towards a navigation, and we are moving while looking into the map. And so we are using real-time or near real-time navigation mode. In this case, the distance should be updated because the position of the user is updating, and this update should be presented to the user with text labels and should contain information about its new position. Another user need about maps and navigation. A user who finds orientation difficult wants to navigate towards a destination. This is a very common user need. If a real-time navigation mode is enabled, as we said on the user need before, the direction to follow must be available as text labels, and every update or change must be presented to the user. But, as we know, not every user finds himself comfortable on using navigation, orientation, while looking into the map and while walking, for example, on the real world. Sometimes this might be distracting or not easy to understand. And so, most of the time, if a real-time navigation mode is enabled, the user needs direction that should be available as visual hints, like arrows, so not only like as text labels, as text information. Of course, if the user is using visual hints, it should be presented also proper alternative text. So, alternative text with visual hints and also text labels for in order to navigate towards a destination is very important to be provided. In this case, if using visual hints, the alternative text will need to be dynamically driven and accurate and also updated in near real time. This is very important because not every user finds himself comfortable in using text navigation information. Another important user need about navigation can be this one. A wheelchair user wants to know the estimated time needed to move toward a certain destination following a route on the map. The estimated travel time is, as we said, for the distance and other important information while using maps for navigation. And the important thing here is that estimated travel time is strictly bounded to the travel mode. And so estimated travel time must be available as text labels, and also the estimated travel time must be available for different travel modes. This is important, as for example Google Maps does, to present different travel modes with different estimated travel times. And the important thing here is also to present to the user only those travel modes that are concretely available, really available on that path for that destination. So if the map presents estimated travel time according to travel modes that are really available for that path, the user has all the information that he needs in order to know how to navigate toward that destination using the map. This is a very common user need for maps. So now we are going to talk about user needs for comparing. A journalist wants to study data about the spread of a virus on a large geographic area. He wants to quickly understand the relevant data and spot the differences between the countries. Also, this one is very common because think about maps using on magazines, on newspapers. These maps should be easily understandable for a very large number of users. And so numeric data should be available as text labels placed over the map and not only just with visual highlighting. This is important because and a very important rule for accessibility in general is not to rely on colors, not to rely on only on symbols, on shapes, on sizes, because users may not be able to spot differences on colors and on sizes easily, for example. And each label should contain the value, the unit, and the related countries. So all the data that the user needs to understand in order to understand the big picture. Another requirement, if numeric data are shown, as we said before, using colors or symbols, a legend must be available as text annotation on the map context or near the map context. And this is important because if we are using not text data, so visual highlighting of some kind, we have to provide a legend in order to understand those symbolism, those coloring, and etc. Another example, strictly related to the prior one, a blind student wants to know the demographic data of a certain area specified on the map. In this case, we are also talking about numeric data, but we are talking about of a blind student, a blind user, and think about this blind user that wants to navigate all those data over the map that are shown with text labels, but they are a lot. They are a very large number of information on the map. And so the user should navigate one by one, and this is very difficult. It will become a very bad experience, a very bad user experience. And so in these particular cases, when we have a large number of information as numeric data on the map, it should be provided an alternative mode in order to read those data. And with alternative mode here, we have an example. Numerical data on maps are usually shown with different colors, graduation of symbols, for example, for different sizes. Think about a city with 1,000 people that is highlighted with a big red circle, and instead think about another one with 10 people that is shown with a tiny dot. Not every user may prefer or may be able to spot differences. And so people who find difficult to differentiate colors, boundaries, and symbols can retrieve the same data using alternative mode example. For example, a table. And so it's very important to provide both data view and let the user decide which one to use according to his user needs. Last but not least, we are talking about monitoring on maps, and we have here a user need that summarize all the other requirements that we talked about before this. A user wants to analyze how real-time data are changing on a geographic area shown on the map. So this is a very complex example user need because it contains a lot of numeric data, real-time updates, and so the requirements are the following. Data must be available on the map as text labels or other metadata that should be updated automatically if the feature is switched on, because not every user may like the automatic update of information, but they rather want maybe to update with a refresh or with a specific user action. Also, data should be available with an alternative mode because we are talking about complex data, a lot of numeric and complex data. And for example, a table should be provided and should be very useful for a lot of users in order to read those data and be constantly updated about those informations. So I thank you again for the attention. Thank you, Joshua Connor, and all the RQTF team. And thanks, everybody. I hope I give you a first overview about maps and accessibility and the need for annotations. That I hope it will be a start in order to think about more about accessibility on maps on the context of the web platform. Thank you, everybody. Have a nice day.